Hey, Swanee.
Yeah.
What's that word that you can't say?
Oh, anthropomorphization. Is that it? Did I get it?
That's close. Anthropomorphization. What does it mean?
It means giving dogs human qualities.
That's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast. Well, I'm here with my little buddy here today, and Honda's hanging out. Honda's the studio dog, and he's decided that my couch is more comfortable than your couch.
I know. Yeah, it's weird how he's headed over there today. Yes.
He's a good boy. He did that once before, too. Usually he definitely settles in on your couch because he's your boy, but he just likes me better today. Yes. Did you upset him somehow?
Well, last week I was in Newfoundland for the week, so Honda couldn't come to Newfoundland, so I'm thinking that he is...
Yeah,
he's feeling a little bit like, where did you disappear to for a week?
Yeah,
I'm going to sit with Shannon.
He's very upset with you, and he's letting you know that. You know what that is?
What?
That's very anthropomorphic of us.
That is.
And that is a perfect segue, because that's what we're talking about today,
and
really.
What's anthropomorphic mean?
Anthropomorphic?
I don't know
what anthropomorphic means.
What is it? Anthropomorphic?
Anthropomorphic.
Anthropomorphic. Okay.
I know, it is quite a tongue twister for sure. Anthropomorphic basically is applying human qualities to animals. Right. And we do that as a society ad nauseum. And sometimes it's really harmless. You know, we put little hats on our animals and we think they're so cute and they look like people. Looking at me, fix these people.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Or they sit on a chair in a funny way. We're like, oh, he's sitting like a person. Yeah,
exactly.
And we laugh.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You know what's funny? The chairs that we used to have at McCann's that had sort of the hole in the back, they had like the vinyl top and vinyl seat and then the hole in the back. Whenever I would put a toller up there to sit, inevitably their tail would hang straight down. And it always made me laugh so hard. Like the chair was wearing this furry necktie from the back. Again, now I'm applying human qualities to a chair.
To a chair, yes. No, but you're right. I've seen, with the popularity of TikTok and all the different reels that you see on Facebook, it seems to be more and more that dogs and cats and other animals are starring in these videos, and we're doing voiceovers with human voices, and giving them qualities that they really don't have.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems on a surface level like it's really harmless fun, which it is if you can keep things in perspective, right? If you can keep it in perspective that we are anthropomorphizing with these creatures and they're not truly little humans, then it's harmless fun, right? If the dog doesn't mind having a costume on, if the dog is not sensitive to having things touching them and it's a worry for them, it's harmless fun for them and harmless fun for us. And, it just makes them part of the family even more.
Right.
But where it becomes harmful is when we solely give those attributes to that creature. And we assume based on their actions that they're showing human quality. My most hated one, and I'm sure you're right along lines with this, is calling a dog stubborn.
Yes.
We do this as humans. We assume that any reaction from the dog that is not what we want is the dog being stubborn. And as dog trainers, we understand completely that dogs are not stubborn.
No.
They're either undereducated, they're undertrained, they don't understand what we're asking them to do, or there's another motivation for it, right? If my dog is not coming when I call them at the park, it's not because they're stubborn. It's because I haven't put in the time for them to be able to face that type of distraction and understand that they don't have an option in that situation.
Yes. Many people say, well, you know what, he always comes at home.
Yeah.
And then they immediately believe that the dog coming at home will equate to the dog coming at the park.
Right.
And it doesn't. Dogs don't generalize like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think our goal for today is we wanted to take some of the things that we anthropomorphize about, and we wanted to talk about them and break them down a little bit. But we also want to talk about where we can anthropomorphize, and that's harmless for the dog. Or
you know what? I'm not going to be saying that A word. That's a tongue twister for me.
It's a good word. I did have to practice it.
Right,
I definitely practiced that as I was coming up in dogs to be able, because I would trip over it a lot.
Yes.
It is anthropomorphization. That's even bigger. That's a good one. But yeah, somehow I got it down pat now. It only took, 25 years of practice. So I'm good now. But I wanted to use anthropomorphization today to talk about the differences between humans and dogs and how we should sometimes be thinking more along the lines of how we treat our children when we're trying to apply some of the learning to dogs. And that doesn't mean that I think that we should be treating our dogs like children. It's just drawing comparisons that I think will really help people put things in perspective with the traditional way that we go about our dog ownership and dog education, etc.
Right.
So, first one I want to talk about, and this is fresh, top of mind, because we literally were doing support questions with our students right before coming over here to do a podcast. Our days are sort of mismatched of all sorts of things because we do all sorts of different things in our roles.
And much stuff is just off the cuff.
Yeah.
We just, let's just do this. Yep.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And today we were answering questions about when should I expect my dog to understand this thing? And I said, I literally said to you, we need an analogy that helps our students understand that that's not a realistic question to ask. And it's not an easy or even possible potentially question to answer, especially when this is an online student. We don't know your dog and how fast they learn yet. We did this as a puppy essential student who's just started with us.
Right. And they haven't sent any videos yet. So we haven't seen them working with the dog. So we're not sure if technique is slightly off.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've encouraged her to send in a video so we can watch that video and I can custom coach from the visual.
Yeah. And like the question intention to me is to say like, at what point should I stop doing this? And to apply generalities to an entire species is problematic to begin with. But those sorts of questions, if I were to turn that around now, and if I were to say, okay, put this in human terms, at what age should I expect every child to understand basic math? I mean, I might be able to give you a generality, but when there's variables in the creature themselves, and we're working with living beings here, there's so many things that you need to consider. You need to consider the talent of the handler and their ability to convey information and teach those skills, right? Obviously, excuse me, I would hope, but I think it's quite obvious that at this point, teaching Levon, after being 25 years in dog training and sort of developing these physical skills and mental skills as well, after 25 years, I can definitely take a dog and teach them something faster than the majority of first-time dog owners who are handling their first dog.
You're able to read the dog too,
and that's the other variable.
Yes,
and that's really the more important one, I would say. So, I mean, I think temperament comes into play. I think genetics come into play. Like, there's some breeds that are really readily sitting there saying, okay, teach me. A border collie, for example. Some of our sporting breeds. Like, there's a lot of dogs that are bred to work alongside a human. So that makes for an interesting thing because we don't take the dog who's like, I'm not really interested in the human. I'm more interested in self-serving and sniffing the ground and say that's a good breeding prospect for the border collie. Because then the farmer needs to spend a whole bunch of time teaching that dog to want to work with them and want to listen. And that's not realistic for your average farm situation.
So if you have a border collie and a basset hound, there's a lot of differences there.
Oh, huge.
And they're going to learn at very different rates.
Absolutely. It's always good to think about what the dog was bred for when you're thinking about bringing a dog home. And that should be your sort of jumping off point for figuring out whether or not this dog is going to be a good dog to fit into your life. So I wouldn't say at what point will every single... I thought he was going to eat my little piece of paper there.
He was hoping it was a piece of popcorn or something.
Candy.
Yeah.
Candy? Look, a piece of candy. We wouldn't say at what point will every child understand basic math. We really shouldn't say at what point will my dog understand this, right?
Yes. Or it's with toilet training.
Yeah.
Even within a family, within siblings, you might have one child at 2.5 that's a whiz at toilet training. And then your next child's maybe 3 before they master the toilet training.
Absolutely.
So, and you use the same technique.
Maybe 30.
Right? 30. I remember my doctor. I remember Ty's doctor saying to me, "Don't worry, all kids are out of diapers at 16."
Sorry, I just scared. I was trying not to laugh into the microphone, so we didn't blow out the sound. And I think I startled him by leaning over top of him. Oh my goodness! Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we can't give hard and fast.
No.
We can give generalities, but yeah, there's no hard and fast. So don't feel that because your neighbor's dog could come on command, at the age of 1 reliably. Don't feel that your dog's going to be there at the same point.
Yeah, absolutely. And take an honest inventory of how much effort you have put in to gain those skills as well. Because if you're thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to train twice and then take my dog off leash and cross my fingers, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
Think of every skill you teach your dog just like it's a human skill. Yeah. So if Shannon and I sit down and there's computer things to be learned, Shannon's going to learn them right away. Whereas I will learn them maybe in a couple of years because my computer skills are the same as a potato's.
Potato?
Yep. A potato and I have very similar computer skills. So that's, yeah, think of it like that. We don't all learn at the same rate.
Yeah, it's absolutely a fact. I mean, not the potato part. I think you have far better skills than any potato I have ever met in my life.
Maybe I'm at the level of a French fry, but not, I've surpassed the potato and I'm at French fry level.
The skills of the French fry when it comes to computers. Oh my goodness. But yeah, absolutely. And how much have you broken down that skill, right? So if I say I want you to learn how to use word processing on a computer, right? I know that this is a skill you already have and you're exaggerating, but say this is something that is a new skill for you. I'm not going to just plunk you in front of the computer and go, okay, here it is, learn it.
Right.
First, I need to see, okay, what are your basic skills like in computer? Mm-hmm. Do you know how to turn on the computer? Do you know how to use a mouse? Do you know how to use a keyboard? Right? All those basics.
Yes.
When I first started college, I was going into, I did not start college for dog training. I started college for computer programming, and that's where my actual education before I found dogs. I found dogs during college, but that's where my education was. And even there was a basic skills computing course that you could get exempted from, and I did get exempted from it because I was a bit of a computer nerd in my teenage years. So I had those skills already, but there were people going into that didn't. Yes. So those people going into computer programming and somebody saying, okay, learn how to computer program and here's some pseudocode and here's a flowchart and here's well, that is not where you start if you've never sat at a computer before, right?
And
same with our dogs.
Yeah, like a student who says, I want my dog to do agility.
Yeah.
So we have 2 students that want to do agility. One student has done tons of obedience.
Yes.
One student has done none. The student has done the obedience background is going to accelerate very quickly through agility, where the other student with no background is going to struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no arbitrary way of saying this student is going to get there at this point and this student is going to get there at this point. What we need to do is we need to break it down. So now if I'm thinking about that computer course where it's basic computer knowledge, first, you need to learn how to turn on the computer and use the basic functions surrounding the computer. And now I'm going to assess that knowledge, right? Okay, how are you doing with your keyboard skills? How are you doing with your mouse skills? How are you doing learning to track your mouse on the, understanding that the mouse is connected to the pointer and all this, that, and the other. Okay, you understand that perfectly. Now I can move on to the next step. Yes. And it's the same thing we want to do with our dogs, right?
And it's what we do with our children, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't just put our kids in university.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's a brilliant one, right? Right from kindergarten to university.
Right, yes.
Yeah. No,
There's a lot of steps.
Build step by step by step. And it's the same thing with our dogs, right? So we teach them how to follow a lure so they understand how to follow a lure. And then from there, okay, I've assessed that my dog's understanding of how to follow a lure is great.
Right.
They know how to follow a lure. So now I'm going to make that lure go into a sit. I'm going to help them follow that lure into a sit or a down or a recall or whatever the case may be. And then once they understand that, now I go to the next step.
Right.
There's no sort of arbitrary age.
No.
And it, just like with children, there's not. Right. There's a generalization that we can use so we can start teaching those skills.
Yes.
But there's no answer to that. Right. When should I expect? At what point should I expect? We just need to take that dog and work with it and then move on when we see proficiency in their understanding. So
and what goes along with that too is we send our children to school to learn. So we should send our dogs to school to learn. Obedience classes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And let's talk about why we're talking about this, because a lot of people are thinking, well, yeah, obviously they learn at school, but a lot of people expect their dogs to come understanding all of these things already. So with children, I think it's so ingrained in the way we do things that we send them to school to learn, and they're there for that learning experience. And that's what's educating them and preparing them for the real world. With dogs, we seem to think the dog's prepared for the real world just based on their existence. Right. So we get a lot of questions about puppies and how do I stop this behavior and how do I stop that behavior? Well, actually, perfect idea of talking about. I was just talking about if my dog never learns that it is possible for them to jump out of an X pen, they're never going to jump out of an X pen, right? If I treat that scenario, here's this X pen, I put my puppy in it, and I manage that situation, right? So I'm thinking about Levon right now because he does spend time in an X pen now. Now he's graduated away from having to be in his crate all the time. And now when I'm not able to watch him, not able to supervise, work with him, et cetera, and I need to be paying attention to other things, I use an X pen.
Right.
So he never, ever learned that it was possible for him to jump out of the X pen. And he's at a point now where physically his head is above the top of the X pen because it's not a big X pen I have in my living room. It's just a short one. So, his head literally is over the top of it. And I've made sure to reinforce all 4 feet on the ground in there. I've made sure that I never open the X pen when he is jumping on the wall, etc. And I also, when he was young and he was just learning about the X pen, I didn't put him in the X pen and then leave the room because that creates a puppy who, before they're comfortable in the X pen, comfortable in the crate, comfortable in the X pen, etc., what's he going to do?
Right.
He's going to try to follow me, right? He's going to get upset. He's going to be jumping on the wall. He's going to be vocalizing. He might figure out he can climb out of there. He might figure out he can jump halfway out of there.
He might figure out he can knock it down.
Exactly. So then I get to the point where now he has this knowledge that's unfortunate that he's learned, and it's working against me, right? So I've put him in university too soon, basically. I've expected him to understand how to get on the bus and get to school by himself without holding his hand in that scenario type of thing, right? It's too much too soon. And then he learns the wrong thing, right? When he's on the bus and he goes, oh, look, there's a McDonald's en route to university. Oh, I want to stop there and eat and play in the kids' playpen instead of going to school, right? I don't want him to learn those bad behaviors before he's learned the good behaviors. Yeah. So I think that's a good example of some of the, steps and stages of things. We need to treat our puppies like they're puppies who don't understand the world yet. And they're not. I think part of it, why do you think that people assume their dogs understand things before they do?
I don't know why they do, really. I think people have far too high of expectations for dogs. I think people...
Before they've put in the work.
People often think their dogs understand. I've had students say, well, I told him quiet. And I'll say, well, when did you teach him what quiet meant? And they'll, or, well, I called him to come, but have you taught him what come means? People seem to think our dogs know far more than what they know when we bring them home.
Well, and as humans too, I always think about when my niece was really young, and she is now teenager, full-blown teenager. I can't believe how quickly time flies. But at any rate, 15 years old. I feel old. She's a wonderful human being. Anyways, when she was young, my sister used to say all the time, you can't be what you can't see. And she would be very conscious of making sure that there were good images that showed women doing things that we would want Chloe to identify with as she was growing. And that whole thing really sticks in my head. You can't be what you can't see. So humans, here we are, we have this sort of altruistic view of everything. And we see the dog in the park that we fall in love with because it's off leash and it's chasing a Frisbee and it's doing tricks. Or we watch a Disney movie and we see my dog Skip and we see this beautiful relationship between the dog and the child.
Right. Or just with YouTube fantasy. And TikTok. We see these trained dog images popping up and we don't realize the behind the scenes work.
Yeah. So you see a border collie and you think, oh my gosh, they're amazing at everything they do. I want that. But you don't see how much effort goes into, and that's that whole thing. You can't be what you can't see. So you're looking for that end product. People are often putting their dogs in university before they've even graduated from kindergarten because they're thinking in that end product term. At what point will my dog understand this thing? Like, how long do I have to wait, sort of thing?
Right.
And it's not about that.
Right. Like, we would never just, see an airplane flying by and go, I want to fly an airplane.
I do that all the time.
Right, yeah, and just get in the cockpit.
But I wouldn't get in the cockpit. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But that's what we expect our dogs to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Break that down, right? First, you need to understand the calculations. You need to understand what all of the different things are. And I don't understand any of this. Like, words like velocity and things are popping in my head, but I can't connect them because I have no clue.
Right, yeah. So and what buttons to push.
Yeah. I would need to figure out what, why, and where and when. That one's important too when you're flying.
Yep.
Before I even considered getting in that seat.
The most important part of flying is, where's the knob to turn on the radio?
Yeah. Of course.
That's the first thing you need to learn.
Let's learn this. We don't need to learn any of the other things, but I need to know. Where's my TV and how do I turn on the radio?
Right. Yes.
Love it.
But we do that with our dogs. Yeah. We expect them to be able to walk on leash without pulling.
Yeah.
Without ever teaching them how to do it.
Yeah. The education is what provides the skill. Yes. So we go to training so that we can teach the dog how to do these things. We don't go to training because it's the thing we're supposed to do. And then we think, oh, this is too much work, I'm not going to put it in. We go to training to learn how to communicate with the dog. And I think part of our big fight and part of our big struggle is trying to convince people that these dogs are not being stubborn. Because a lot of times people already come in with these preconceived notions, right? And that's because of all this anthropomorphization. It's because we're really separated as a society from animals at this point. Right. And actually, I thought this was really funny. In Mississauga, there was a police investigation because somebody was throwing some sort of a substance. Did you hear about this?
I don't think so, no.
Somebody was throwing some sort of a substance onto the cars in the area, and it was sort of presented as a joke, but it kind of illustrates the point. So people were worried about what this substance was that they were waking up and finding on their cars, and they were like, it was falling from the sky, so they were convinced somebody was throwing it. The investigation, basically, it's feces from a heron.
Oh.
So somehow this bird was flying by. People weren't seeing it, but they were seeing the poop left after, which I'm sure is giant.
It's giant, yes. I saw an ostrich go to the bathroom once.
I bet it was.
It looked like someone threw an entire can of paint out from behind it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, right there, it's like our brains don't go to, okay, what animal made this thing? What is this? Our brains go to another system because we're not really connected with animals anymore. We don't live in a situation where there's farms on every corner anymore.
Yes.
Like we're quite removed. We get our meat from grocery stores.
Yes. And there was a point too where a lot of our grandparents were still on farms. So, you go to the grandparents' farm, but now, no, my grandparents didn't farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
you're right. I mean, neither did mine.
Yeah. But when you read older books, it's often, the kids are going to the grandparents' farm. Yeah.
Well, and people, even when they didn't necessarily have a big farming operation, they would grow some of their own food. They would have their own animal stock potentially to use for food, etc. We were much more connected with animals. And now our animals serve as different things.
Yes.
And I can identify with this because I am a childless 47-year-old woman. Sniff, that sounds sad, but honestly, I never wanted children of my own.
You can borrow my child anytime you want.
I would take your child in a heartbeat. He's a good kid, man. And you've already done all the work, too, so he's all grown now. But honestly, I love my niece and nephew to pieces, but I never wanted children of my own. It was not something that I naturally wanted to gravitate to. It just, for whatever reason, there's nothing wrong with me. I just did not want children of my own.
Well, there is things wrong with Shannon, but they're not to do with that.
That's a bold statement, Shannon. Oh, my goodness. You should watch before you speak. It's true. There's a lot of things wrong with me, but I just never wanted children of my own, but I love my dogs. And of course I want to nurture my dogs as much as I possibly can. And I want them to adore me and I want to adore them. And I want us to have these great communication factors and I want us to have these amazing adventures together. but I still know that they're dogs. And I think that's the hard and fast reality that I have being a dog trainer. I have to know that they're dogs, because otherwise I'm just going to perpetuate all the problems that thinking they're little humans continues to drive in our society. Right. And I think that the more we see the dogs, dancing in costume, etc., with voices on TikTok and the like, the harder it is to keep the balance factor in play, right?
Yes.
So that's really, that's what we're trying to get at today, is all of these things that we assume. And I honestly, at this point in my dog training career, I think about things in terms of how the dog sees it, right? So I'm not thinking, oh, he's stubborn because he's going over to sniff the corner instead of responding to his name. I'm thinking, what is the value in that corner for the dog, and how do I combat that value so that his response to name is stronger than the draw of the smell in the corner. And it's not that complicated when you break it down in that way, but it becomes immensely complicated when you first identify it and misidentify it, where you say the dog's stubborn and that's why they went over to the corner instead of responding to their name. Well, no, there was something in the corner that appealed to the dog by nature, and your response to name was not well oiled enough and was not, we've not built enough value on that response to name potentially to combat whatever that distraction is. And that's all it is. And when you look at it from that perspective, you go, oh, okay, well, now I just need to set up some response to name drills. I need to make it more valuable, and then I can bring it back to this corner and I can test it and see how the dog does. And I can use that assessment to move forward with, right? There's a potential that the dog might fail again in that corner and get drawn into that corner and blow his response to name. And then it's just information from me, right? Instead of me being angry with the dog and saying, you're stubborn, I go, okay, I still haven't done enough value building for this, or I haven't done enough convincing that he doesn't have a choice when it comes to turning on his name. And I just need to go back to the drawing board, or the training board. What's a training board? But
And one of the things I love about dogs is that they're dogs.
Oh yeah,
they're
me too.
not
they shine
humans.
As dogs.
Yeah, they're not humans, and it's a connection to nature. It's a connection to our past. Working with an animal, and that's one of the joys, is that they're not human.
Yeah.
So why would I want to give them human qualities?
Absolutely. And they shine so much as dogs. They're brilliant as dogs. And there's nothing. One of the reasons that I love dogs is that they're not stubborn. They may be determined about some things. And that's a quality that we look for in a lot of dogs. But communicating with them on a level that they understand you and you understand them will never come if you treat them like a little human.
Right, yes.
And there's something so special in that bond.
One thing, when I got my cowboy, my Saluki, a Saluki is a very ancient breed. They have found them in the Egyptian tombs. They say in the Bible the only dog mentioned.
Are they standing there at the tomb door when they open the tomb? Are they standing there with their tennis ball wagging?
Let me out. Yeah. And they say the only breed mentioned in the Bible is the greyhound, which is actually the Persian greyhound, which is the old name for the Saluki. So they're an ancient breed. So when I got cowboy, I thought, I have living history.
Yeah.
I don't want to change this.
No, absolutely
This is living history, something that I can touch and work with from the past. And I don't want to change that.
Yeah.
I want to preserve all those attributes.
And you can't really.
Right.
Like you can't change genetics. What you can do is you can train the dog in ways that channel those drives, right? So Cowboy, being a Saluki, would have great chase drive.
Yes.
Like phenomenal chase drive. Talk a bit about what they're bred to do.
So Salukis are bred, they're from the Middle East, and they're basically bred to chase desert fox, desert hares, antelope. And also, I think
that's what I was bred to do too.
In the mountainous areas, like different types of, goats and that they could take down. So they're released often single or three in a group, and they basically put the meat in the pot for the Bedouins, the nomadic tribes. And they were extremely valued because they were the link for them getting food.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that chase drive is never going to be completely squashed in that breed, right? Never, never, never. It doesn't matter how much you domesticate a breed, you are going to see these qualities creep in. You may not see it for generations, and then all of a sudden there's this outlier. You might take a Saluki line and breed it for domesticated use for 100 years, but then all of a sudden you see this glimpse of that original instinct, right?
Yes.
Like you're never going to get rid of it completely.
No. And I wouldn't want to.
No,
if I don't want a dog with high chase instincts, then I'm not going to get a Saluki.
Yeah. And that exactly is what the preservation of purebred breeds is all about.
Yes.
It's maintaining those instincts. Even though our society and our lives have changed, we still want to be able to tap into that for whatever reason.
Right.
And we do a great job of simulating this with hunt tests and lure coursing trials and things like that, right? Like I do not hunt. I don't think I ever will hunt. It breaks my heart when I almost run over a frog in my mower. So like I'm not going out and shooting animals, but I love training my dogs for hunt tests. Yes. I love training my dogs for field work. And in Canada, things like shot flyers, which would be live birds being shot at tests, they're not legal. So I never have to worry about that unless I go and test in the States. So
and same really with when they do like Saluki, like hunting trials, they don't use live rabbits. That's illegal. I think there's one state maybe that they still can do that. But everywhere else, it's you have to use a lure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like these simulated tests are great ways of continuing to preserve that instinct. You know, I know in with bully breeds, with pit bulls, with things like that, there's a lot of weight pull competition.
Yes.
So, you know, you're still preserving these specific instincts in the breed, and you're still wanting to have a pit bull that's very powerful, but we're not breeding pit bulls to fight each other.
Right.
You know,
yes.
I mean, unfortunately there's still illegal activity that does breed dogs to fight, but that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about your average breeder who loves the breed, right?
Yes.
Who loves the qualities that come along with a pit bull, but doesn't want the danger. You know, there's so many things that we can do to sort of channel these drives. And I shouldn't have said pit bulls because there's so many other there's so many other discussions to have surrounding pit bulls and games and game breeding and game instinct and things like that. But that's for another episode.
Yes.
That is an entirely other episode.
Back to the A word. What is it?
What was the A word?
Anthropomorphizing.
What are you calling me? You nailed it.
Right.
That was perfect.
Yes. So another thing too is giving a young puppy way too much freedom. When we have a toddler, if I have a 2-year-old in my house, I'm watching it, or I'm watching her or him, or another responsible adult is watching, or they're in their playpen or in their crib,
you got it,
or in their swing. They're somewhere where they're contained.
Yeah. And
same with puppies.
Yeah.
They're either in their crate or we're watching them. Yeah. But too many people take a 10-week-old puppy and say, you know what, have fun.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Make good choices.
And they allow the puppy to, go to the bathroom in the dining room. They allow the puppy to sneak around the corner and get into the bathroom garbage.
Yeah.
And the puppy's learning now.
Yeah.
I can do these things.
Yeah. And then people read it as people do, right? Oh, he understands because he's sneaking away to go to the bathroom. But here's the thing, like dogs don't want to be scolded, and we get frustrated when they go to the bathroom in the house, right? So if I come into the room and I see my dog squatting and I go, hey, what are you doing? My dog goes, oh my gosh, I am doing something wrong. And that's what I want in that moment, because I'm trying to stop this behavior from happening. So ideally, I don't ever leave my dog unsupervised until these things are worked out. But if I see my dog going and I want to stop them, I'm going to have to stop them with my voice, with my body, all of those things, right? And the dog goes, okay, I don't really like that. But then I fill in the holes. I take him outside. I praise him when he's going pee outside, and he goes, oh, I like that. Okay, so that doesn't feel good. This feels right.
Right.
Now, if you take a puppy who I'm not supervising, right? I come into the room, I catch them having the accident, I scold them, and then I rush them outside. You know, that puppy might have holes in their understanding that, black and white information, wrong to go inside, right to go outside. They might have holes in that because maybe I haven't caught that accident in time for them to make the connection. Maybe I've walked in after the fact, etc. Maybe I have a really sensitive dog, and I specifically don't scold them because I know that scolding them when they have already had the accident and walked away from it is not going to be useful for me. But maybe they're really sensitive and they see me go, and deflate when I see the accident, right? There's a lot of sensitive puppies out there. So that puppy goes, okay, I don't want to be around when that happens because it doesn't feel good, right? That negative, aversive response. So now my puppy goes, okay, it's only safe if I hide when I do it. So now I'm going to sneak away and I'm going to go to the bathroom where Or it could be their general instincts kicking in, which happens when a dog is growing up and getting older and more mature. Instinctually, they're going to go and want to go to the bathroom away from the den space. So there could be any number of dog reasons that this is happening. But we automatically think that the dog is being spiteful, or the dog knows that they're doing something wrong, and therefore, you know, they should be able to fix or self-regulate themselves. And that is where we fall short. That's where the anthropomorphization really hurts us, because we're not diagnosing the problem right. So how could we possibly fix it? Right. So yeah, I mean, all of those things are so important and so connected when you're looking at raising a dog. It's not that hair trigger response that we have that assumes that dog's being stubborn. You know, even saying that a toddler was being stubborn by doing that is probably a stretch.
Right, yes. Because I watch America's Funniest Home Videos, and you'll often see somebody, their child has magic markered all over something, and then they bring out the camera, and now it's funny.
A big deal,
And now the child goes, oh, this was a fun thing to do.
That's how, like, Carrot Top got his start.
Oh, yeah?
You know that comedian that
does? Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know,
Forget I
but
said that.
Or the kid, you know, dumps the flour over their head, and it, you know, the parent wasn't watching them, and now the parent's videoing it, and people are laughing at it. What are we teaching that child?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Unless you want a comedian that plays great practical jokes, you should probably be careful with what you reinforce.
Right.
Because that's truly what it's about, right? It's what's reinforced positively and negatively, right? And the dogs are going to react to that.
Yes.
Dogs don't change just because we apply human qualities to them. And in their learning, they avoid things that are unpleasant, and they move towards things that are pleasant. And that really is dog training in a nutshell. If you can figure out how to make the things you don't want the dog to do, if you can figure out how to make them unavailable initially until you have built value for the things that you want them to do, and then unpleasant potentially for them to do the things you don't want them to do, as you're making it pleasant for them to do the things you do want them to do. Like, these are the basic learning principles of dogs. They will move away from things they don't like and towards things they do like. They're creatures that live by reinforcement.
Honda has a story.
Let's hear it.
He'll probably be embarrassed for me to tell.
He left me. He got frustrated over here with me because I kept leaning over him.
Well, when Honda was young, he got into the bathroom garbage, didn't you? And
he's like, yeah, I did.
He discovered that he could eat the tips off the dirty Q-tips.
Oh.
Are you embarrassed? No, he's not embarrassed.
Like,
he's a dog.
They were tasty. I'd do it again.
And so okay, this is bad now. This has happened. So now Honda's going to want to do that again. And, you know, sure enough, I brought the bathroom garbage out. We did some training. But every time I went out, I made sure the bathroom door was closed because I did not want that to repeat and become stronger.
Yeah.
But of course, one day we forgot and he got it again. Ooh. So now it's even stronger that when people aren't home, I can do stuff. I should go check that bathroom door. So we ended up buying a bathroom garbage with a lid on it, which solved the problem. But I wish that had never happened because now, you know, if I say I go to visit Shannon and, you know, and she's an open garbage, there is a chance Honda will go and check that out because it happened.
Reinforcement history.
It was very reinforcing to him.
Absolutely.
So, So I don't know. I don't think he's embarrassed at all that he did that.
No. He doesn't look embarrassed at all. No. We just told the whole world that you were a naughty puppy.
Yes.
And he doesn't look embarrassed at all.
So here we are. We're anthropomorphizing him. I can't get that word. But he's a dog. He's not embarrassed at all.
Exactly.
Oh, actually, another thing. Honda went to the bathroom. We call it making a log. Honda made a log today in front of an entire school bus of children.
And how did that go, Honda?
Well, the kids were looking on in disgust. Honda didn't care at all.
No. I can imagine that's true.
Yeah.
So when I first moved into my old house, I posted the first picture. This was 10, 11 years ago now. Yeah. I posted the first picture on Facebook with them in the living room saying, we're home. And it was an empty living room at that point because the movers hadn't come and blah, 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 blah. We're home. And then a couple of hours later, I posted another picture of them all pooping in the yard at the same time. There was 3 of them at that point. Yeah. I was like, whoops, nope. Now it's really home. Yeah. And I posted that on Facebook, and some people were like, ew. And I was like, what? My dogs are pooping. I don't get it. don't have any shame surrounding my dog's poop.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's use this. This is our cover picture on
right.
Facebook.
Yes. I thought, what a way for those kids to start their day at school.
Yeah. Look, a dog pooping.
Yeah.
Did anybody take a picture?
No, the kids, they were very young. Like they looked like kindergarten age kids, but they had a look of, they were judging. They were judging.
You should have like picked it up and then been like, all right, clearly I'm not the squeamish one around here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about a few other things that are very typical for people to assume their dogs understand. And you sort of touched base on this one. This one's huge for me. Language.
Language, yes.
Think about your kids, right? Think about the kids in society. If you don't have kids, if you're one of these 47-year-old childless people like myself and you don't have your own kids, think about kids in society. They don't come understanding language skills, you know? And that's why it's going to be specific to region and language spoken in a home. You know, I can raise a dog and teach them all their commands in German. They're not going to understand English. Right. You know, it's all about the learning process, the teaching process. And a lot of the times, like you said, you use the analogy of, well, I told him quiet and he didn't. You know, dogs don't come understanding language skills any more than children do. We teach them bit by bit, associations, words, and kids are faster at picking up on things because they're not situational learners like dogs are. Dogs are very much situational learners. So we need to create a system of generalization for them. Yes. But initially, just teaching that one word is a step in a process in and of itself. Right. And we try to minimize the amount of language we use with dogs so that we can get pointed responses to a word that we might use.
And it's even, they don't understand language, they understand noises.
Yes, you got it.
So it's a noise we're making. They don't know it's a language.
Absolutely.
Yes,
which is why, and this is another point, he's stubborn. He'll only do it for me, right? He won't do it for my partner. Well, your partner's voice sounds very different. Right. Has your partner done any training with the dog? No. Okay, well, there's your answer right there. Yep. You know, the dog understands the skill now, so it's not going to take as long for your partner to be able to help teach this skill or to associate this same skill with the sound coming out of them. But it needs to be done. Right. It still needs to be done. It's not going to take as much time and as much effort because the dog already has some understanding. But you can't expect them to understand you saying something and me saying something, even us. Right. Our voices are different enough that that could be confusing to a dog. Our body language would be different enough that that could throw a dog off, etc. So just like our kids don't come home with understood language skills, neither do our dogs. Right. If you want a word to be meaningful to them, you need to teach them. Yes. You need to create an association there. So, you talked about freedom already. Freedom is such a big one. I think it's important to actually touch on that a little bit more.
Yes, and how think of it like your children. You keep young children safe by using playpens, by holding their hands when they cross roads, by just supervising them. Yeah. And we need to do that with our dogs too. They don't know something's dangerous.
You got it.
You know, Honda wouldn't know that licking the electrical outlet is dangerous. How would he know that? Or chewing a cord is dangerous.
Until he's tried it and potentially gotten a little zap from it. Yeah. Right.
But I was very on top of Ty. You don't stick your finger in the electrical sockets. You know, we buy those things to put in for kids. So I'm going to make sure my dog's not chewing electrical cords. I'm going to make sure that I don't leave the kitchen cupboard under my sink open and my dog gets my scouring pad and starts chewing on it. I'm going to keep them safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, I mean, those things, that supervision element when they are learning is so crucial because you are going to create a monster if you let them get reinforced for their scavenging tendencies. Right, yes. And it's not that they're bad. They're bad humans. That's the thing. Yes. And I don't mean that the human in the relationship is bad. I mean that the dog is a bad human. Right. You know, because they're a dog. Right. They're not supposed to be a human. Yes. So a dog by nature is a scavenger. Yes. A human is probably not going to go into some stranger's house and be like, "Oh, what do you got in your fridge? I'm going to have a look."
Or let's look in your bathroom garbage for a Q-tip.
Let's see what Honda? Oh, Q-tips are other wonderful things. Like, A dog is a scavenger by nature. So even if they don't find anything, it's rewarding for them to look, right? So that's going to drive their behavior.
It's like a person that loves to go to thrift shops.
Yeah. Oh.
It's very rewarding to go through a thrift shop and find that one. Yep, that one thing. And even if you don't find something, you go back because maybe it's there.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And I like the analogy because I want to point out it's all relative as well. Right. One dog might go in and start scavenging and find a toy that they're like, oh, this is gonna, maybe they find a kid's toy that's easy to shred. Oh, this is going to be the best thing in the world. And then they shred it. And it's so rewarding for them because, of course, they're scavengers, they're hunters. They want to tear things apart. Yep. So then they're always on the look for that thing. Right. Like, here's an example. Ned versus Levon. Levon has yet to really figure out that he can chase the bunnies on the property because he hasn't had the opportunity because he's been in heavy lockdown training since he was brought home. And now he's, he's a lovely little dog. He's just hit 7 months, and I'm enjoying my time with him so much. Ned has learned that there are bunnies on the property. Right. Ned has learned that he should be on the lookout for those bunnies. So when I go for my morning walk with those dogs every day, and multiple times a day in a lot of cases, but in the morning especially, Ned knows there's a potential that the bunnies are going to be out having breakfast, and he knows the spots on the property that he usually sees them. He leaves the deck with that singular mission in mind: find bunnies, must find bunnies. Whereas Levon leaves the deck with whatever, like just no real mission. Right. Oh, we're going for a walk. Yep. So he gets to the bottom of the stairs, and there's about 6 or 7 stairs down. He gets to the bottom of the stairs and he goes, okay, where are we doing, Mom? Where are we going? And where there's lots of situations where Ned will turn and look at me and be like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? Right. But never in that situation. His focus in that situation is singular. Bunnies having breakfast, must find and chase bunnies. Yes. So every morning we come down off the deck and I say to him right away, Ned, we're going this way. Because otherwise he's going for those bunnies, right?
And that's like dogs that you let them out the back door and they try to clear the yard of squirrels. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's so reinforcing to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they go flying out that back door every time.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. And, I will definitely continue to work on my recall with Levon because he will discover the bunnies at some point. There's no question. I'm not delusional in thinking that, oh, this dog just doesn't want to chase bunnies. He just doesn't understand.
Have you ever thought of putting up a sign that says no bunnies?
I'm going to put up a sign that says it's rabbit hunting season. No bunnies allowed.
And bunnies can read and write.
But you let that one bunny in. It says no bunnies. Yeah, exactly. They can, can't they?
Yes.
Yeah, no, truly. I mean, that is like what they rehearse is what they're going to do. Yeah. And what's reinforcing for them becomes the thing they want to rehearse. Right. So if we want them to do other things, we need to help them rehearse those other things. And we need to take away the option for chasing bunnies. Now, having said that, Ned being a predator and Ned being well-versed in bunnies now, I don't know that I'm ever going to get him to stop thinking about that value that's over there for him ever. For the rest of his life, I'm always going to have to say, Ned, we're going this way.
Right, yes. That's what I find. Especially with Cowboy, I had to get my thought in her head before she had her thought. Yeah. So I would say, we're going to the car. We're going to the car. Yeah. Car. And she'd be like, okay, car. And she would forget that we have a yard full of squirrels.
Yeah, yes. For sure. And
just for that moment. But if I said nothing, her brain would say squirrels.
Absolutely. Yes. And let's break that down for a second, because I'm sure you didn't just randomly start saying car. And she went, oh, okay, great. Right. What did you do to get to that point?
Well, we would, I'd say, in the car. As we approach the car, in the car. So,
and did you reward it?
I don't think I did, because I felt that getting in the car was rewarding to her. Okay. But I very well could have. I could have, had a treat and rewarded her. Cowboy wasn't really very food motivated as a young dog. Gotcha. So with another dog, though, I very well could do that. Is reward for the car. So they put that word together.
Well, and this is like what we were talking about with variables. This strikes me as exactly that, right? Some dogs would find the car reinforcing. Some dogs would not find the car reinforcing.
They find it terrifying,
so, absolutely. Yeah. So if she finds the car reinforcing because she's connected already that means she's going somewhere or there's good things that happen in the car, then that's something that is a reinforcing thing or a rewarding thing for the dog. If you had a dog that didn't find the car reinforcing, then you would have to build that value.
Right, yes.
And that's the part that people miss a lot because they're expecting that the dog will just automatically like the thing.
And people do automatically think the dog's going to like the car. That's another.
And there's a lot of things that I think people assume the dog is just going to automatically gravitate to this one emotion or the other. And there's outliers and everything.
Right.
But it's really hard to generalize with all dogs. Actually, I have a funny story. I was at Thanksgiving dinner over at my in-laws, and my brother-in-law was talking about a friend that he had with a bulldog. And he loved this bulldog, and they were talking about, potentially getting a bulldog themselves. And so I was talking about some of the things to be concerned about and health-related issues, especially with the bulldog and English bulldogs. Yep. And he was talking about this bulldog and how funny this bulldog was, because this bulldog would go tearing towards the couch and then either take off too late or too early and basically body slam the couch instead of making it onto the couch. Right. And of course, my very dog brain. I do think that half of my brain at this point in my life is dog, and then it might even be 3/4. Like maybe I'm like a quarter human and 3/4.
I've noticed some changes.
There's a lot of hair.
One of your ears is getting really floppy too.
You know what? One day I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, where did all this hair come from? Yeah, I'll be a beautiful, graceful dog though, not like this bulldog. But my brain is thinking, you know what? I bet that dog wasn't trying to make it on the couch at all. I bet that dog loved body slamming that couch. Yeah. And you're reading it as the dog is trying to leap onto the couch and missing. And I bet that dog was doing what it was bred to do. And it was doing this body slam and tackle into the couch and probably going like, whoa, that's the best fun I've ever had. And then, okay, let me just shake myself up and get ready for it again. And then, whee, here I go. That was really funny. I don't even know why I told that story. Do you remember why the connection was there?
I don't. But you know what I thought of too? Part of my brain would have said, I need to get my dog's eyes checked. He doesn't seem to have depth perception.
Potentially
Can the dog
that as well.
Not see properly?
Yeah, potentially that as well. And that might be a much more realistic place to go. But honestly, in my head, I was thinking like, that's a body slamming type of dog. Right. And like looking at Levon, for example, he is a rough player. Yeah. That dog likes to play rough. When he first came home as a baby, I was like, oh, he's so delicate and little. And Levon's a toddler. He's 7 months old now. He's so little and delicate. I have to play so gently. And as I was playing gently, he'd be like, oh, I'm out of here. This is so boring. So I was like, okay, well, I did just watch you with your litter mates, and I watched you body slamming, and I watched you being really rough. And all right, let's get rougher here. Channel the Shannon that raised the Rottweiler as her first dog. All right, here we go. And I started like pushing him away, and he turned on instantly. He was like, yes, that's how I like to play. That's how I like to play. And like, all right, great. I don't mind playing rough at all. I surround my games with rules. So he knows when it's okay to do this, that, and the other, and when it's not. And I very much channel that drive to create a situation where I can then safely roughhouse with him. And that's not going to risk any, it's not going to risk him suddenly deciding that he wants to body slam you, for example, right? It's very controlled. He only does it when I say, I don't use a traditional playtime command. I say, I'm going to get you. And I literally
say that too,
I make the claw hands.
To beat you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to get you. And he'll come flying at me, and then I duck out of the way. And we've gotten to the point where we have it pretty well oiled, where he's flying but not necessarily trying to actually latch on. So there's not the big danger of him accidentally grabbing me, etc. When it is a situation where I'm going to allow him to tug on my sweater sleeve or something like that, I'll say tug and get it in there so that he knows that is allowed at that point. And, these are my rules for play. Everybody's rules can be a little bit different, but teaching them how to appropriately play with you. I mean, this is another thing that I would never assume that my dog is going to understand how to play with a human in a human
exactly.
world. And a lot of the times, especially with nipping, right? Especially with nipping, people take it so personally with their puppies. And it's like, you know what? You should be in this really twisted way of thinking, like follow me for a second, be flattered. Your dog wants to engage with you.
Right. Yes.
That's why they're nipping at you. It's not appropriate, and we need to let them know that. But first off, diagnose it as what it is.
Right.
This is a puppy who is trying to engage with you in the way that they know how.
Right.
If you watch dogs play with each other, you'll see these play styles.
It should be mandatory that owners sit and watch the litter for like a few days before they bring home their puppy.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would do that if I ever bred dogs, which I will never breed dogs. I could never get I could never get rid of them at the end. Honestly, I could never say, okay, thanks for purchasing this puppy. No, it's mine. They're all mine. Now I have 18 puppies.
But I think people would have a better understanding of what they're bringing home if they saw how their puppy behaved on Wednesday and then they bring it home Thursday. Yeah. It's like, I'm expecting an awful lot from this little creature.
Yeah.
Who's just spent all that time rough and tumble.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I do have a question for you.
Oh.
It's about your Thanksgiving dinner.
Okay.
So I know your niece and nephew were there. And I know your sister probably had prepared vegetables and potatoes and all those things. So when she put out the Brussels sprouts and the turnips and put them on your niece and nephew's plate, did either of them say, I don't like this? And then she ran to the candy cupboard and put some candies on it for them?
Well, I don't want to comment on my sister's parenting too publicly, but no, I do not think she would have done that because that would be dangerous. Right.
Because then the kids are always going to expect, to get candies put on their food.
Yeah. I love where you're going with this.
You know what? People do that with their puppies.
They do.
Their puppy pauses and says, I don't know if I want to eat the kibble. And it might just be because they're not hungry at the moment or... we're not always starving and going to eat our food. And the person panics and they run to the pet store and they get little liver sprinkles or gravy and put it on the food. And the puppy says, I just hold out for a second and better stuff appears.
It's interesting that you should bring that up and in that way as well, because I would say all of these toppers are a fairly new invention of the pet food company. It's sort of like the all over body deodorant. All of a sudden it's like, I'm 47 years old and I shower daily for the most part, and I have never in my life needed deodorant anywhere other than under my armpits.
I will vouch for that. I have never smelled Shannon.
And that's not just because you have no sense of smell. Right. But some of these things are just marketing inventions. Right.
Yes.
We have never seen as many dogs who lack food motivation as we're seeing lately.
Yes.
And I think it's been a growing trend that I've thought, you know what?
Yes.
This never used to happen. Why all of a sudden in the last arbitrary amount of time, 5 years, say, for example, is this suddenly happening with our dogs? Why are we seeing so many people say, hey, my dog is not food motivated? We've gotten away from free feeding, so why? And I think that this is probably, you just nailed it right there. People are panicking the second their dog turns their nose up at something. And I had this question even from a student who had just joined the program and had just brought their puppy home. They were still within a 48-hour period. Yeah. And I said, just don't stress about this for now. Ned didn't eat for 2 days when I first brought him home. He is one of the most stable, steady dogs that I have ever owned. He truly is he's I don't want to say unflappable because he's a dog and there's certain situations that of course he would be, but he is very level-headed. He usually will assess before he reacts with anything. He doesn't have those jittery emotions at all. He is very stable and very steady. But when I first brought him home, he did not want anything to do with food. It was 2 days before he finally was like, okay, all right, this seems safe. I'm settling in. Yeah. Their whole world has just changed. And to panic and start offering them bigger and better.
Right, because it's just teaching our dogs to be picky. And so many people fall for it.
Yeah, don't fall for it. Don't believe the hype, yo.
Right. A healthy puppy will not starve itself. A healthy puppy will eat. And they are animals too. In the wild, not that our dogs are wild, but a wild animal doesn't have regular meals.
No.
So it's fine for them to miss meals now and then. We miss meals now and then. I didn't have any breakfast this morning.
Oh, I had candy.
Yeah, we did. Shannon and I did have some candy. I will admit that.
We always have candy before the podcast so we can get sugar rushed up and bring you all our best.
Right. But, like if you have a dog that's an established great eater and then suddenly, he starts missing meals, that definitely speak with your vet.
Absolutely.
Like if Honda at 15, if he stops eating, I'm going to take aware of that right away.
Yeah.
But a brand new little puppy that you've brought home, the worst thing you can do is go, oh, he doesn't like his food. Let's put some gravy on it or bacon drippings, or let's get some, little sprinkles of liver, because now you're just teaching a puppy.
Yeah, absolutely. Same Hold out for better.
Right. Same with dog. You're training your puppy and you're using the kibble, and suddenly your puppy says, I don't want a kibble. And you immediately reach for a piece of bacon. The dog's going to go, huh?
Yep.
Yes.
Turn your nose up at the kibble and you get bacon. Yeah.
So we create our own problems. And just as we wouldn't just feed our children delicious candies and cakes, we expect them to eat their broccoli. Yeah. We expect them to eat their meat that we put out. That's where their nutrition is from.
Yeah, absolutely. And we tell students that all the time. If they turn their nose up at the kibble, if you're training with kibble and they turn their nose up at it, just put it away.
Put it away and put the puppy away. I'll say, oh, well, that's too bad.
Sometimes put the puppy away,
and then I'll put them in the crate. Yeah, you don't want to play by my rules, then we're not playing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we do with the McCann method is we teach gentle insistence, right? We teach skills that allow the handler to say, you know what, you don't want to sit right now? Well, sorry, you have to. We teach a placement so that we can say you must.
Right.
We teach a down placement so that we can gently say you must.
Right.
We want to make sure that we are making training as fun as possible.
Right,
and we're making it the goal for the dog to learn in the most efficient and fun way possible.
Right.
But in the end, we also need it to be effective.
Right.
We need the dog to understand that dragging us down the street is not an option. We need the dog to understand that coming when called is a must.
Right.
All these systems that are in play to teach the dog allow us to say, well, you know what? You don't want the kibble? Sorry, I'm going to put it away, but you still have to do the thing, and that's just the way life goes. So.
And gentle assistance we do with our children, too.
Yes.
All kids get to a point where they say, I don't want to wear my seatbelt.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I know best. It's the safest thing for you. Yeah. I am responsible for you and your safety. You will wear this seatbelt.
Yeah.
And, that's something that we would never not do with our children.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's very similar things with our dogs. It's, you know what? No, you must do this. I know I'm the adult. I know best, and I'm your caregiver.
Yeah. Precisely.
Right.
Precisely. And that's what it takes to keep a dog safe in our world, is being able to say, sorry, you don't have a choice in this, And same thing with our kids. We can't let our kids try to negotiate up with us, because then they end up calling the shots, and we are fairly futile in our attempts to lead and guide them. So that's...
something about parenting is I'm surprised now how many children can't sit without entertainment.
Yes.
Like when we used to go to the doctors, we sat in the doctor's office and you would daydream, you would talk with your parents, you would play I Spy.
Yeah.
Or
you have a coloring book or something.
You would pass the time.
Yeah.
Whereas now you see parents sit down and their kid starts yelling for the phone. They want the parent's phone. And and then the kid has games. And I think, what?
Yeah.
Like,
I think
what's going to happen in the future with people who cannot pass time without electronics?
It is such a crucial skill to be able to do just nothing.
Yes.
I teach my dogs that.
Yes.
I absolutely think it's important. We do bed stays and just hanging out. Like, there will be there'll be times when I specifically set out to just have the dog do nothing at my feet, sort of thing. And I start it in the house when I'm watching TV or something like that. I'll have the puppy on leash, and I'll have a lie down at my feet. I'll have a lie down established already. Right. So I've already taught them that, this is how you lie down on command. This is how you hang out and build duration lying down on command. And then I'll use this situation where I'm watching something on TV. I might put on a half an hour sitcom or something. So, 22 minutes by the time you work in commercials.
This hour has 22 minutes.
Commercials on Netflix, right? So 22 minutes, my dog is lying down at my feet. I might give them something to chew. I might not.
Right, yeah.
You know, sometimes I just want him to learn that
yes.
you just have to hang out and do nothing.
Right.
And then I'll take that, I'll take that out of that situation and add it to my training situation. So I meet a friend for field training quite often, and we'll have coffee beforehand.
Right.
And Levon right now, when we're sitting in our chair having our coffee, he is laying down at my feet. So he learns that sometimes you just have to be.
Right.
And that's his name, for he shall be.
Well, I think people make the mistake of making the puppy the center of attention constantly. Yeah. And then the puppy feels it's always has to be the center of attention.
Got it. Yeah.
But people miss that training step where we have to teach the dog just to exist with us in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they expect that far too early too,
Yes.
right? Like with our young puppies, there's self-regulation that comes into play. And this is a really important thing to understand, because dogs don't self-regulate until they reach a certain age, which means they're not going to conserve energy instinctually so that they have it for later pursuits, right? When they're a puppy, it's just chaotic energy all the time, right? I'm going to run around the living room and then I'm going to crash and I'm going to fall asleep.
Right, like a toddler.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Toddlers don't self-regulate either. You got it. Emotions too, right? They go
much like Shannon too. Shannon gets into work, she runs around chaotically, then passes out at her desk.
I didn't think anybody was watching that. Oh my gosh.
We're watching, Shannon. We're watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I was just saying this to you about Levon too. He is hit 7 months of age, and I've noticed changes through development. And like, if you consider the development of the dog as part of your approach to their learning when they're young, you are going to make your life so much easier. That people often make their lives so much more difficult because these points of development where the dog goes, oh, I'm going to change today all of a sudden, right? They go, oh my gosh, everything fell apart. Or they think that this super cooperative pup that they have until about 12 weeks of age, who's eager to follow them around, is, oh, I hit the lottery. You know, this pup's following me everywhere. He comes when he's called. He walks nicely with me on leash. He can shake a paw. For some reason, shake a paw is always part of it. Yeah. My dog can sit down, come when called, and shake a paw.
Right.
Always shake a paw. I always giggle at that. Shake a paw is always included.
Yes.
But a lot of the time,
that's important for greetings.
We expect that puppy is going to stay like that. And we're like, oh, I don't need to train. And then 12 weeks hits. Yep. And the puppy goes, oh, okay, I'm at this next stage in my development and my world gets wider. Right. And I'm more able to commit to sniffing things and wandering around and investigating and going further from my human or my safety point, right?
Yes.
And then they hit 16 weeks and it gets a little bit bigger. And then they hit 7 months. So I was actually just talking to Swanee about this morning, because I've noticed like pretty much overnight this week, really, that Levon's self-regulation in terms of energy is starting to kick in, which is lovely. So the negative side of adolescence, I'm starting to notice that he's being more committed to sniffs. He's being more committed to moving further away from me and being a lot more independent out there. So my training at this point is really coming into use, and I'm continuing to train. I'm not thinking that he's done by any stretch of the imagination, but the stuff that I've done up to this point, I've really used that cooperation time. I've really sort of made sure to buckle down as I've seen him get more independent, so that I was doing more work with response to name and building value and things like that. And now this week, I'm noticing that as sort of the quote unquote negative quality. It's not really a negative quality, because again, it's just a dog quality. Right. He's living in a human world and he's not good at being a human. So I need to take that into consideration when I'm training him to do the things that I want him to do in my human world. But the other thing that I'm noticing is that, so we were out late on Wednesday night. We went to an event together. We went to see the Vampire Circus, which is sort of like a Cirque du Soleil.
Right, yeah, lots of aerials,
it was phenomenal,
and some really amazing things. Yes,
I highly recommend it if you're on the fence about, or you have the opportunity to go and see this. It was really well done, really entertaining, really fun. But anyways, I got home a lot later than I expected, and it was the longest that I have left Levon by himself now since I brought him home, and it was bordering on 7 hours, which is a long time for me. I think I was
to be away from her dogs.
I think I was more anxious about it than he was. Obviously, he was crated. My concerns were that he might get stressed and vocalize, or that he might have an accident in his crate. So I was pretty sure he was ready for that,
or he might just pack his bags and leave.
Or absolutely.
He said, I'm out of here. She's not here.
He's got his little stick and his little bandana tied around all his goods, whatever. And off he goes. Is that what it's called?
A bindle, I think.
It actually had an actual name, but oh my gosh. But yeah, so those were my concerns, and I got home at 12:30 a.m., which is really late for me. Like, I go to sleep at if I'm up at 10, it's noteworthy. So 12:30 a.m. was really late for me. And so I rushed in and was like, okay, he's good. He's dry. He's happy. Like, he doesn't look stressed. Okay, fabulous. I need to go to bed. I can't possibly put this dog that's just come out of the crate for 7 hours back in the crate to sleep overnight. And he's still sleeping in the crate overnight right now. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to see how this goes. I'm going to barricade the living room, which is what I do when we're just hanging out in the living room. But up to about the last week, he's really still been a going concern in the living room. Like, he's not ready to just chill out and lie down and be calm without me insisting on that. And I thought, I'm going to fall asleep on the couch. So there's no way I'm going to be insisting on anything. So let's see how this goes. So anyways, I got on the couch. I blanketed up. I kind of leaned against some pillows, and he wandered for a little bit, but then he got up on the couch and he started chewing his bone. And then soon enough, I looked over and he was crashed out, and I crashed out. And then a couple hours later, I woke up and we went to bed, and I did pop him in his crate to go to bed, and then slept the rest of the night. But that self-regulation and that understanding that he's going to take cues from me would not have happened naturally when he was any younger than this, right? It happened now because he's ready for that. On a physiological level, his body is telling him that it's time to self-regulate and conserve his energy for times where energy is needed and in use. So now he's ready for that step. A lot of the times people expect their dogs to be at those steps far sooner than the physical body is ready for. So we end up shooting ourselves in the foot by expecting these things, because then we set the dogs up to do it and they don't, and we get frustrated with it. Or even worse, we let them rehearse the wrong things. So I have not let him rehearse running around the living room being a nut. I don't like activity in my house when it comes to the dogs. I don't like them wrestling with each other. I don't like them playing. I don't like them shoving toys in my lap. There's lots of opportunity in our lives to do that. But when I'm in the house and I'm relaxing, I want them to be relaxed too. So I set that tone, He was, up to this point, always in that X-Pen or always in that crate. So he was rehearsing calm behaviors in the house. You know, after a couple of months of crate training, he was very accustomed to going into the crate and instantly turning off. Because that's what he had rehearsed up to this point. So, you know, all of those things contribute to how easy or how difficult the dog is to live with. If you set them up to rehearse the thing that you don't want them to rehearse because you're trying to give them freedom before they're ready for it, you're just creating a monster, you know?
And even once dogs are trained, they still need tune-ups, and they're still capable of making errors. I always think I see people often walking their dogs down the street in the city off leash, and they say, oh, well, they're trained. And I think they're not robots. And, you know, I think too, like, I know 100 kilometers an hour is the speed limit on my, not on my street, on the highway. But you know what? I go 120 sometimes. I break the rules, even though I'm a trained driver.
And why do you do that?
Just for the thrill of it.
There you go. It's rewarding.
Or it's rewarding. It's rewarding to go a little bit faster. And dogs, when I see dogs walking off leash in a busy area, I think, you know what?
You're taking a risk.
You're taking a risk. Yeah. And the person, you know, you could say to the person, like, do you ever speed? You know that's wrong, but you do it.
Yes.
And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. A dog can take a misstep or decide to chase. So we have to keep up our dog's training and not just assume now they're trained and they're robots. They're not. Yes.
Absolutely. Refreshers are excellent reminders, even with our adult dogs. You know, changes of season are a real trigger for me. I mean, I do try to get reinforcement in far more often. I tend to do it in the form of a lot of play. So, like, for example, being out on the trails, Ned's almost 8 years old. You know, he doesn't need he doesn't need very specific lessons in general obedience because he has excellent listening skills. But I do make sure that every once in a while I call his name and then take off running so he gets to have a little chase, or like he gets to me after a good response to name. This morning, I called him off of a running squirrel on the McCann property, and then he did get food for that. Anytime something like that happens where I call him off of a run, he absolutely gets food for that if I have it on me.
Yes.
I have lots of food on me right now because of the pup, because I want to make sure that I have food to reinforce the pup because the pup is still learning. So Ned often gets the benefit of that as well. But it's so important, those reminders and refreshing the idea that this is a reinforcing thing is such an important thing.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be food.
I do it with Honda too. Honda is deaf now.
Yeah.
And so I have an arm motion to get him to move towards me. And I practice with food. And so now I know I can use that arm motion, and he's like, oh, there might be a treat, and he'll come moving over.
Yeah.
And, you know, without him hearing, I do have to make sure that he's always safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other rewards that you can use. What are some of the other rewards you use with Honda?
Well, he has a few toys that he definitely likes.
Okay.
He likes if you pull toys along the floor, he likes to chase at them. He also likes empty water bottles.
Fun.
So I could suddenly pull out an empty water bottle.
What if you didn't have any of those things on you?
Well, if I had, I could use just fun and play.
Yeah.
So he gets to me, and I could, you know, he loves having his butt scratched. You know, I could ruffle him up. He has a trick where he likes to lie down and army crawl backwards. It's kind of one of the only tricks he seems to really enjoy doing.
Okay.
Like, he enjoys doing tricks, but that's his ultimate favorite.
I wonder why. I wonder what the intrinsic value is for him. Like, does it scratch his belly nicely and feel good, so he likes doing it?
Right, yes, yeah. Or he also likes to put his front feet up on a stool.
Okay.
So we can...
That might just make him feel powerful.
Right, yeah. He's a little bit taller now. So, yeah, there's all kinds of little things that I take note of that he really likes. And if I don't have any food with me, we can do something like that. Yeah. You know, he likes, being 15, he likes to be picked up and held too. No, so that's often I just kind of clap my hands and he runs to jump up.
Just like 15-year-old humans, right?
Right, yes. Yeah,
I'm going to let my niece know.
Yeah.
You told me that. She's 15. Yeah, completely. And like... anything that the dog finds valuable can be a reward. So,
or Hound likes it when you clap your hands for him.
Yay!
Now he's not showing anything right now, but hey, yay!
He's like, no,
he's keeping me humble.
You're making this up,
keeping me humble. But yeah, often if Honda's wandering around, you clap your hands. He starts like, woohoo!
See, all sorts of things, and anything that the dog finds rewarding can be a good reward for the dog. So I pay attention to my dogs,
right?
You know, I watch what they find rewarding, right? Like Levon right now, he's in love with picking up and trying to chew up the acorns and whatnot on my property. Like, I'm not going to use acorns as a reward for him, but it's like, okay, that's an interesting thing to know.
Right,
like, he's gravitating towards the acorns. There's obviously something that he likes about that.
Yeah.
How can I use that as a reward system? And maybe this never evolves into anything that makes sense to me in terms of reward. Maybe he learns that he can chase the acorn, pick it up, and bring it to me, and that's great fun. Yeah. So, you know, I'm paying attention to the things that he does naturally, so that I can try to use those things to then build up my reinforcement system with him.
And Cowboy used to love to chase leaves.
Yeah.
And so if I had nothing, or I just wanted to play with her, I could pick up a leaf and throw it in the air, and she was in her glory.
Yeah.
So
Robbie has a grass get it game with her dogs that I've seen her play, and it's hilarious. As soon as she bends down and plucks a couple of things of grass, one of her dogs comes flying over with like the most enormous intention of playing that you've ever seen in a dog. And for some reason, this is just this fantastic game this dog likes playing, so Robbie uses it all the time as a reward for her recall when she doesn't have rewards on her.
Right. Yes.
Like, you know, it seems silly, but we don't get to decide what the dog finds rewarding.
No,
they do.
Right.
We don't get to decide what they find aversive. They do. So, like, pay attention to their reaction to things. What do they love? What can you use?
When we had a daycare here at McCann's, we used to have a training daycare where dogs would come in and we'd work with them during the day. We had one German Shorthair Pointer. I can't think of his name, but he was quite a character, and he was very unruly. And, we had to spend a lot of time with him. One day I noticed I picked up a brush to brush a dog, and he just immediately fell into place. It's like, for some reason, that brush was an aversive to him. I'm sure, I don't know what had happened or why he was associating it. Lovely owner, so I know nothing had ever happened.
Right.
But as soon as I picked up that brush, he was perfectly behaved. So I implemented that a little bit in our training when I worked with him of using this brush and rewards and different things like that. But it was very strange that I knew that brush was an aversive. Like, of course I didn't. Yeah, like I wasn't.
No.
Like, you behave, I'll pick up the brush. Like, it was nothing like that. But I could, I could if I
don't make me pick up this brush.
Right? Yeah, I could kind of just look at the brush or touch the brush, and he'd be like, okay, I got it. Yeah, like it was very, it was subtle, but I picked up on it.
Truly, not all good dog training is written down in books beforehand. Sometimes you have to think way outside the box, just like that, right?
Yep.
Like, pay attention to the dog. The dog is the best teacher you are ever going to find when it comes to dog training, and they shine as dogs. So if you listen, my goodness, your experience with dogs is going to be tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. And on that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee.
Happy training.
The McCann Dogs Podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!